Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Let's do it.
All right, today we're heading back to ancient Rome to unpack a pivotal moment in Julius Caesar's rise, the Siege of Alesia.
Caesar. A truly fascinating figure.
He really is, and whether you're a history fanatic or just intrigued by military strategy and epic battles, this deep dive is for you because, well, we're going to break down this siege, this pivotal moment, using some fascinating excerpts from an article we found.
One thing that I always find really interesting about Caesar is that he wasn't always the invincible conqueror we picture in our minds.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, just before Alesia, he actually suffered a pretty significant defeat at the Battle of Gergovia.
Okay, so it's important to remember that Caesar wasn't always winning.
Right, exactly.
It's easy to forget that, especially with figures like him who, they become these larger-than-life historical icons.
Mhm.
So I guess, what does this loss tell us about his opponent, Vercingetorix, and the Gallic forces he was up against?
Well, it definitely shows us that Caesar wasn't dealing with pushovers,
Yeah.
The Gauls, maybe they lacked that rigid structure of the Roman legions, but, I mean, these guys were fierce.
Fierce and determined.
Absolutely. And for Vercingetorix, he was a cunning adversary, to say the least.
Yeah, he really pushed Caesar to adapt his strategies.
Yeah, he forced him to think in ways he hadn't anticipated.
Yeah. And speaking of strategy, our article actually highlights a pretty audacious move by Vercingetorix, just before the siege even began. He actually sent away his cavalry.
He did. Bold move.
Hoping to bring in reinforcements from the other Gallic tribes.
That's a big gamble.
Talk about high stakes. Was this desperation or a calculated risk?
It's a fascinating question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some historians might see it as a desperate act. But I think it really shows Vercingetorix understood the strengths of the Gauls. I mean, he knew that his cavalry probably wouldn't be as effective against those very disciplined Roman legions in a long drawn-out siege. So instead, he's betting on a swift victory.
Wow.
He's hoping for a decisive win with the help of, all those reinforcements he's calling for.
So he deliberately puts himself in a corner, hoping to turn the tables.
Right.
Pretty audacious.
Yeah, it really is.
But where does he choose to make this stand? Where does all this go down?
Alesia. And the choice of location, I think that's absolutely crucial to the story. Just try to imagine a fortified city on top of a plateau, like a steep plateau rising almost 1,300 feet.
Okay, so I'm picturing a natural fortress, basically impregnable.
Exactly, you got it. Vercingetorix, he was using the terrain. He knew he had that advantage.
Right.
He's forcing Caesar to contend with, not only the Gallic defenders, but also the lay of the land itself.
The landscape, yeah. And Caesar being Caesar, he wasn't easily deterred, right?
It wasn't.
Our article goes on to detail his response, and, it was a bold one. He didn't just, surround Alesia with a single wall like you might expect.
No.
He built two.
2 walls. It's impressive, really.
All right, two walls.
Yeah.
What was the thinking behind that? Why two?
Okay, so the inner wall, the circumvallation, right, that completely encircled Alesia.
Right.
Cutting it off, no supplies, no escape.
Right.
Classic Roman siege tactic, starve them out.
Mm-hmm.
But then Caesar takes it up a notch. That's where the second wall comes in.
Okay, this is where things get really interesting. So the second wall faces outwards. It was to defend against those reinforcements Vercingetorix was hoping for.
You got it. A massive undertaking, truly. It really shows you, just the scale of Roman engineering at the time.
Oh, absolutely.
And Caesar's thoroughness. This wasn't just about, brute force.
Right.
This was about careful planning. Conquering the city, sure.
Yeah.
But also sending a very, very clear message, a message of Roman power, Roman might. And Caesar's unwavering determination.
Okay, so picture this. Vercingetorix, he's holed up in this fortress city, this naturally fortified city. Caesar has him surrounded with not one, but 2 walls.
Right.
And then those reinforcements.
Yeah.
They show up.
They do.
They actually show up.
They really do.
Wow.
And it's hard to say the exact number. Historians debate that, but it was a huge force.
Yeah.
Maybe even outnumbering Caesar's legions.
Yeah.
Suddenly you've got the Romans trapped.
Between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. Between this fortified city and this massive army ready to break the siege.
Yeah.
Talk about pressure.
Oh, I bet. And so the Gauls, they launched a coordinated attack.
Right. Vercingetorix forces, they're pushing out from Alesia, and the reinforcements are hitting that outer wall hard.
Yeah.
What was it like for the Roman soldiers? I mean, just imagine being caught in the middle of all of that.
I can't even imagine. Terrifying, probably.
Yeah.
You're facing a relentless enemy. Two fronts.
Two fronts.
Yeah, and the outcome, I mean, it's really uncertain at this point.
But, this is also where, the discipline, the training, the just sheer grit of the Roman legions.
Yeah.
That's what comes through. Despite the chaos, despite being outnumbered, they hold their ground. They hold the line.
So the Romans are holding on. But inside Alesia, things aren't looking so good.
No, not at all.
Food supplies are dwindling.
Hmm.
Vercingetorix, he's forced to make a truly heartbreaking decision.
Yeah. He orders all the non-combatants, women, children, the elderly, to leave the city.
He sends them out.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine the anguish?
Yeah.
The hope that maybe, just maybe, Caesar would show mercy, but sadly.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Neither side takes them in.
They're left stranded.
Yeah, between the armies, left to starve.
Wow. It's just, it's a stark reminder of the brutality of war.
It is a grim reminder, even in ancient times.
So Caesar, he's got the Gauls pressing their attack from bay sides.
Right.
You'd think his situation, well, it's getting pretty dire.
Yeah, you would think so.
Was he starting to doubt his strategy?
Outwardly, he kept his composure.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think it's safe to say that he felt the pressure. But instead of panicking, Caesar being Caesar, he saw an opportunity in the chaos.
He did. He did.
So he's got enemies outside Alesia. He's got enemies inside Alesia.
Mm-hmm.
He's got people starving in between. What exactly was this opportunity that Caesar saw?
Well, I think he realized that the Gauls, they were fierce, no doubt.
Yeah.
But they weren't as skilled in cavalry tactics as the Romans.
Oh,
Their
right.
charges, they were often undisciplined. They lacked that precision you see in the Roman cavalry.
That coordination.
Yeah.
Okay, so Caesar sees a weakness, and of course, the brilliant military mind he was, he decides to exploit it. So what happens? What happens next?
He launches this carefully planned counteroffensive, and, the cavalry plays a pivotal role.
Okay.
Especially his Germanic allies.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, the Germanic horsemen, they were known for their speed and, their agility.
Right.
And they were perfect for this kind of maneuver.
Okay, so this is where things get really exciting, right?
Yeah.
The Romans, they managed to just rout those Gallic reinforcements.
Right.
Sending them, just completely scattering in disarray. Can you paint a picture for our listener of what this must have been like? For the Gauls caught in the middle of this, just absolute chaos.
I can only imagine. Just the terror.
Yeah.
The Roman cavalry just screaming those battle cries. You're surrounded. Your comrades are falling around you. There's nowhere to escape. Just the ground is shaking. The hooves of hundreds of horses just pounding. The air is thick with dust.
Right.
And the screams of the wounded.
Wow. That's a really, really powerful image. Just a complete and utter collapse of their hopes for victory. What a crushing blow for Vercingetorix. His gamble to call in those reinforcements, it backfires. And it backfires spectacularly. He's trapped inside Alesia, no hope of relief. It's almost Shakespearean in its tragedy.
Yeah.
So, what does he do? What does Vercingetorix do?
Well, facing inevitable defeat, Vercingetorix, he makes a decision that, that solidifies his place in history, both as a skilled military leader, but also as this symbol of Gallic resistance.
Okay, so he surrenders.
He does,
No.
but not in any ordinary way.
Right.
Yeah.
Our article describes this really powerful image of Vercingetorix. He's in full armor. He rides out of the city gates, and he lays down his weapons at Caesar's feet.
It's a powerful gesture. Both defiance, but also acceptance of his fate.
Absolutely. He could have chosen to fight, right?
He could have.
To the death.
Mm-hmm.
But he makes a deliberate choice to surrender, to spare his remaining soldiers from further bloodshed.
It really is. It's a moment that captures the tragedy, but also the nobility of his struggle.
Okay, so Alesia falls. Caesar is victorious. Vercingetorix is a prisoner of Rome. It's a real turning point in history. What did it mean for Gaul?
Well, essentially, the fall of Alesia marked the end of any major Gallic resistance to Roman rule.
Oh, wow.
Gaul, this vast region, much of modern-day France, basically.
Yeah.
They would gradually be integrated into the Roman Empire.
So it's really hard to fathom the scale of that.
Yeah.
The Gauls, I mean, they fought so hard for their independence.
They did.
And now they're part of this vast, sprawling empire.
Mm-hmm.
It really makes you wonder, what was life like for them under Roman rule?
Well, it was a complex process. It's never black and white, is it?
No.
On the one hand, you have, Roman rule brought stability,
Right.
infrastructure,
Right.
trade, Roman law and
Yeah.
administration. They built cities. They expanded existing cities. The region was just completely integrated into that Roman economy.
Right, right.
But it also meant, a loss of autonomy.
Right.
The imposition of Roman culture, Roman values, the suppression of, traditional Gallic ways of life.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a reminder that history it's rarely black and white.
Yeah.
Even in conquest, there are nuances, there's complexities,
Yep.
there are winners and losers, and those caught in between.
Right. And I think to really understand the impact of an event like this, like the Siege of Alesia, you need to look beyond just that immediate military victory. You have to consider those long-term consequences.
Yeah.
For the people, for the cultures involved.
For generations.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about what Alesia meant for Gaul.
Mm-hmm.
What about for Vercingetorix? What happened to him after he surrendered? Sadly, his fate was pretty common for defeated leaders, in ancient times.
Yeah.
He was taken to Rome as a captive,
Right.
paraded through the streets as part of Caesar's triumph.
Right.
This grand spectacle to really showcase the spoils of war, the might of the Roman army.
Just to really rub it in everyone's faces.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what that must have been like? For him.
Oh, just to be put on display like a trophy, stripped of his dignity.
Yeah.
After fighting so valiantly for his people.
It must have been humiliating.
Would have been deeply humiliating. But in a way, I also think it solidified his status as this symbol of resistance.
Oh, okay. I see.
Even in defeat, he remained this powerful figure representing the spirit of the Gauls who dared to challenge Rome.
So what was his ultimate fate?
After 6 years as a prisoner, Vercingetorix was executed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, tragic end for a leader who had become a legend. Yeah. It's a sobering reminder that history can be incredibly cruel.
It can be.
But even in death, his legacy lived on.
It did.
Right. Inspiring future generations to resist Roman rule.
Yeah. To fight for their independence.
Okay, so we've covered the aftermath for Gaul, we've covered the aftermath for Vercingetorix. What about the impact on Caesar himself? How did this victory shape his trajectory?
Well, I think, as we touched on earlier, the Gallic Wars, culminating in this victory at Alesia, they were absolutely instrumental in Caesar's rise to power. And, he didn't just gain military glory.
Yeah.
He also amassed incredible wealth. Wow. Political influence.
Right. Our source mentions that, right?
Yeah.
How the spoils of war, the plunder from the conquered cities, the tributes from the subjugated tribes all contributed to Caesar's, his growing fortune.
Right. And he used this wealth really strategically. He funded public works, he cultivated political alliances. He was building a power base that would eventually challenge the traditional power structures of the Roman Republic.
So, Alesia, in a way, it wasn't just the end of the Gallic Wars. It was the beginning of Caesar's ascent.
Yeah.
To absolute power.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. It's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
One event triggering another, leading to a completely different world.
And it's a reminder that even these seemingly isolated events can have these ripple effects that change the course of history.
Absolutely.
And that's why understanding history, it's so important.
It is. It helps us understand the world that we live in today, the forces that have shaped our societies, the decisions that have led us to where we are.
And I think it's crucial to remember that history, it's not just about these grand narratives, these powerful figures.
Right.
It's also about the countless individual lives that are affected by these events.
It is. Behind every battle, every siege, every, political upheaval, there are stories of human courage, of suffering, of resilience. And it's in those stories that we can really connect with the past and understand its complexities.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into the Siege of Alesia, what are some key takeaways that you think our listeners should keep in mind?
Well, firstly, I think we've seen just a brilliant display of military strategy,
Yeah.
both from Caesar and Vercingetorix. The siege itself was a masterpiece of planning, of execution.
Mm.
It showed Roman engineering, Caesar's attention to detail.
Right.
But it also highlighted Vercingetorix's strategic thinking, his understanding of the terrain, his willingness to take risks.
Yeah, it's a great example of how military success really often hinges on a lot of factors: leadership, logistics, terrain. I mean, even a little bit of luck.
Absolutely. Luck always plays a part. But I think, we've also been reminded of the brutal realities of ancient warfare, the human cost of conflict,
Yeah.
and the really difficult ethical dilemmas, faced by leaders on both sides.
Yeah. I mean, the image of those non-combatants stranded between those armies.
Yeah.
It's just this stark reminder that war always has innocent victims.
Yeah, always.
Well-
And finally, I think we've seen how a single event, a siege on a hilltop in ancient Gaul can have these, far-reaching consequences. I mean, shaping the destiny of individuals, of cultures, of entire empires.
It's a fascinating reminder that history it's not this linear narrative.
Yeah.
It's a complex tapestry of interconnected events,
Yeah.
each one influencing the other in ways that we may never fully comprehend.
Exactly. And it's that complexity, that sense of mystery and discovery, I think,
Yeah.
that makes the study of history so compelling.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. The Siege of Alesia, a story of ambition, strategy,
Yeah.
and sacrifice, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit,
Hmm.
both in victory and defeat. But
Yeah.
but before we completely wrap things up, I have a final thought for our listener. We talked about Vercingetorix's decision to send away his cavalry, hoping for those reinforcements. Knowing how things ultimately played out, was this a stroke of genius that just didn't pan out, or was it a fatal mistake?
Yeah.
The kind that sealed his fate.
Well, it's a question historians have been debating for centuries. I mean, on the one hand, you can admire Vercingetorix,
Yeah.
his daring, his understanding of the need for, overwhelming force, to break a Roman siege.
Yeah, yeah.
Just imagine if those reinforcements had arrived, I don't know, a day earlier,
Yeah.
or if Caesar's cavalry hadn't been so well prepared.
Right.
The outcome could have been completely different.
It's true. There's always that, what if.
Yeah.
In history, we analyze these strategies, all these decisions,
Mhm.
but ultimately there's that unpredictable element of chance that can just completely change the course of events.
Absolutely. Chance, luck, it all plays a part. But then again, you could also argue that if Vercingetorix had held onto his cavalry, maybe that would have given him more flexibility within the siege.
Yeah.
Maybe he could have harassed Roman supply lines or even attempted a breakout.
It's like a giant game of chess,
Yeah.
right? Every move has consequences. You've got all these unforeseen outcomes.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about the weight of these decisions, the pressure these leaders were under. I mean, knowing that the fate of their people, it rests on their shoulders.
Absolutely. And I think that's really a key takeaway
Yeah.
for our listener.
Yeah.
The Siege of Alesia wasn't just, this clash of armies. It was a clash of leadership styles,
Oh, okay.
of personalities.
Yeah.
Caesar, he was methodical, a strategist,
Yeah.
always in control, versus Vercingetorix. He was, I don't know, a gambler, bold,
Yeah.
willing to risk everything for chance at victory.
It reminds us that history is driven by people.
Yeah.
By their choices, their ambitions, even their flaws.
Mhm.
And as much as we try to analyze events objectively, there's always that human element, that unpredictable factor that keeps us, guessing, keeps us coming back for more.
It does, and that's what makes it so captivating. History, it isn't just, a collection of dates and names. It's a tapestry
Mm-hmm.
woven with drama and intrigue and the enduring power of the human spirit.
Well said. Well said. So, to our listener out there, the next time you're faced with a tough decision, maybe think back to the Siege of Alesia. Think about the lessons these leaders, both in victory and in defeat, can teach us. Weigh your options carefully, but don't be afraid to take those calculated risks. And always remember, even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit, it can endure, it can inspire.
And And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe your choices, just like the ones made by Caesar and Vercingetorix, they'll have, ripple effects that shape the future in ways you never imagine.
That's a thought-provoking note to end on.
Wow.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Siege of Alesia. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep discovering all those fascinating stories that have shaped our world.